What's up, everybody? Dan Strafford here with a little bit of an unorthodox opening to the podcast, a cold open as it were, so I can apologize for the audio quality on this pod, both on YouTube and on SoundCloud. Had some issues with my microphone that I was not aware of until after we finished recording. I was going to attempt to re-record my sections of the pod and marry it with the recording of Emacs analysis, but decided instead to just say, I'm sorry. And I hope the audio quality isn't too much that it drives you away. Obviously, problem solved on my end, figured out where the issue is. Won't happen again, but want to say sorry here. And now, without further ado, here's the typical opening to any podcast I host. And away we go. It's the DFS Early Bird right here from Awesemo.com. Dan Strafford and your old pal, Emac. You may know him as Eric McPherson, as his Christian name is. His DFS name. I kid. Emac, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. This is actually, as we record this is the first day so far in all of NBA that I have not played because I'm out at my parents' house in Washington State. So I'm ready to play. I played yesterday because I entered contests on the plane, and then I'm all set up for at least the big tournaments for NFL because I pre-entered those contests. But the best thing about Washington State, if you play daily fantasy sports or any fantasy sports for money, it is a Class C felony. But that's okay because we have legit vape shop. They're not even there. What do you call head shops? Marijuana shops. Yep. All over the place. The tiny little town that my parents are in, it's not that tiny. It's like 50,000 people. There's 3 marijuana stores that I've driven by when we've gone out to restaurants and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? I can't play fantasy sports when I can go get marijuana.
They don't want people making money. They want people spending money, Emac. So yes. you smoke a joint, you buy some yodels or some maybe some crumb cake, some Doritos. You're helping the local economy, right? You're making that all work. Amazing. Are they north of Seattle? Where are they?
They're like smack dab in the geographic center of the state. This is okay. A little town called Kashmir is where we were. They now live one town.
Also, one of the greatest rock albums of all time. So
absolutely, and it was much like that song Kashmir. It was named after the Kashmir Valley in India. Judge Chase. I forget I can't remember if it's Salmon Chase was his name. It's something crazy like that. He went on a visit to India around in the late 1800s and came back and said, we're changing the town name from Old Mission to Kashmir. But they spell it like cashmere, like the sweater. So there
Got it. So that is a good transition here as we get a fun fact to know and tell. To remind everybody that we are saying thank you for all of the great interactions to our content, and that's going to happen all the way through Christmas Eve. For the first week of thank yous, we're giving away a free NFL membership for the rest of the season. That includes all of the rankings for each and every slate, including showdowns, ownership projections, and all the premium content you could hope for. All you have to do is rate this podcast. You go over to iTunes, 5-star rating. Of course, listen, I said it yesterday, I'm going to say it again. You rate us the way you feel you should rate us because I think we do a damn good job here. I'm not going to beg for your 5-star rating. I'm going to say we deserve a 5-star rating. So you rate us the way you think we deserve to be rated, and you leave a comment. And on today's show, I want comments over there on iTunes, one about your favorite part of the Awesemo podcast, the DFS Early Bird, or previously known as the Night Shift. And in the same comment, I'd love to hear your favorite dad joke. Being Emac and I are here on the podcast together, I feel like that makes the most sense. So give us a long entry. It doesn't have to be too long, but just give us an entry over there on iTunes. And if you're listening on YouTube, give us the thumbs up, share us, make sure to subscribe, and then leave a comment as well. Your favorite part of the podcast to date. If you've already given that in another submission, maybe you did yesterday, leave your comment of your favorite dad joke, maybe one you said, maybe one your pops told you. I'll give you one of my favorite right now, my daughter. And this is one I wrote myself, so I'll take full credit. My daughter is in 3rd grade. She's 8 years old, and they just started band this year. And she's playing the violin. 2 of her friends are playing the cello. And so I said, hey, Nora, when you see Eli, one of her friends, I was like, make sure you say, cello, Eli. And Nora turns to me and goes, Dad, you're not funny. And walked away. It's like, you're grounded, damn it. You never see crap like that to me again. I'm damn funny. But things like that. Everybody knows the dad jokes. Emac and I tend to traffic in them. So I think that is a very good jumping off point for today's podcast. Only 3 games. For those of you who are like, damn it, just get to the analysis. We'll get there. We always do. Boston, New York, Phoenix and Portland, or the semblance of the Phoenix Suns, and the Rockets and Jazz. We'll go through injuries. We'll talk about these games individually. Not going to go position by position. Just going to sort of track quickly through each game, give you some early thoughts. And, of course, the NBA Strategy Show is Thursday morning. You get from A to B Thursday afternoon. And then typically in the past, the deep dive has not aired on this shorter slate, but I think that might be different. You may still get the deep dive at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. and then live until lock at 7, leading up to the 8 o'clock lock of the slate. Tons of opportunity here to have some fun with this slate. Obviously a short one, so don't get too crazy with it. But Emac, any injuries or any overarching notes here before we jump into the slate?
We do have a few. We've got Trey Burke, who's going to be out. He's got a mild MCL sprain. He might be back this weekend. The Knicks play on Saturday and Sunday, and they've said there's a chance he may return. Jaylen Brown for Boston has been dealing with a tailbone injury. However, he has practiced full and says that he is a full go after missing the last 3 games. He is currently listed as probable as we record this on Wednesday night. Devin Booker, hamstring, and TJ Warren, ankle, are both going to be out for the Suns. This is going to be a bit of a problem, and we'll talk more about the Suns and what to do with them when we get to that game because, of course, where your stars are out, there is going to be some daily fantasy value appearing. And Coach Igor I was practicing this one. I can't do it. Igor has said he's noodling over potential starting lineups, Dan. This is a bit of a mess. CJ McCollum, questionable with an ankle injury. I want you guys to know that he did play 40 minutes in the game where he picked up the injury, although with Portland as 14-point favorites against these Suns and at home, there's a chance he's going to get the night off. For Houston, they've made a few transactions. Daniel House has been cut. There's rumors that the Rockets are looking to make a trade. They've put Isaiah Hartenstein down in the G League. Brandon Knight is back from the G League. Here's your fun shot. What G League team does Houston have? Do you know?
Oh man, I don't. And
I had to look these up because I know a lot of the minor league baseball ones. The basketball ones, I have no idea.
Kokoshkov, by the way, but
Kokoshkov, thank you.
And the most media guides have it slightly wrong, where they have Kokoskov, but the S in Russian and Eastern European, is usually SH. So because of Mark, we don't use in English. But anyway, my father lives in Kazakhstan, so I randomly deal with Russian way too often. Houston, we have the Rockets, we have the Astros, we have Riverboat No, we don't have Riverboat Gamblers. We have the Houston the Houston Valley Pride. I have no idea. What's the Houston?
You got one of the words right. It's the Rio Grande Valley Vipers.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. That I got one out of 2 words. All right, Valley Vipers. The Valley Vipers. Have you? You're out in Washington. What do you want the Seattle NHL team to be?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. Somehow I hope they work Sasquatch in as the mascot. He used to be the mascot for the Supersonics.
That's right.
Watch. Prior to him, it was the Weedle on the Needle, but that's local folklore. I like the Seattle Totems. I think that was actually what the team may have been called back in the 1900s when, wait for it, they did win the Stanley Cup in 1917, Dan. Did you know they beat whatever the version of the Montreal Canadiens were, and that was a year or 2 before the actual NHL of what we know today came into existence, but it was still called the Stanley Cup. So there you go.
See, fun facts to know and tell. Let's
I got a couple more quick ones here.
Right.
Derek Parks was a DNP coach's decision. He only played in 3 minutes prior to the game before that. Nene Hilario is back. He has played 10 minutes and 12 minutes in the last 2 games. That is the first action he has seen all year. He's been dealing with the calf injury. We know he doesn't play on back-to-backs. This is not a back-to-back, but it's just one more person in there that kind of mucks up the minutes. And then for The news and notes for Utah is Derrick Favors and Jay Crowder are likely to swap starting in second unit roles depending on the opposition going forward. And just keep in mind, Crowder has only made 3 starts all season. Favors came off the bench for 2 of them, and he was an injury and did not play at the end of October. So I don't know. They may do this, but who knows how much they're going to. Crowder is still playing more minutes on the season than Favors, and generally game to game he does as well. I prefer Crowder coming off the bench because when he's with the second unit, he'll shoot more. But just wanted to point that out. If you see a switch, you probably like the bench guy better, but I really don't think the minutes are going to change. And I see, regardless of who's starting or coming off the bench, I don't see Favors playing more than 25 minutes. And I suspect Crowder will play in that 25 to 30 minute range, regardless of if he's coming off the bench or starting. So I just wanted to point that out.
It is always a reminder that just because somebody's in the starting lineup doesn't mean that they are going to get the usage and full allotment of minutes that you need from a DFS perspective. 3-game slate, a little bit different, but when you have someone like a Kelly Oubre, who EMAC is intimately aware of, being that he lives in the Washington, D.C. area and has been forced to watch the Wizards on a regular basis, when he's shoved into the starting lineup, often he's the 4th or 5th option at that point. So you really have to wonder how people become enamored with him, even though he's pretty terrible at the game of basketball. Let's dive in here, and we're going to go quickly, give you just a lay of the land and get you ready for some fun on Thursday. Also, don't forget there's always NHL and other sports if you don't want to play these short slates, and we do have content for NHL, for MMA, for PGA over at awesemo.com as well. So Knicks, Celtics, a Knicks team that managed to knock off the Celtics earlier this year, minus 12.5 favorite for Boston, 217.5 over under. This is a game that obviously here, I say here because I live just outside of Boston and actually in the town where the Celtics have their practice facility for many a year. This seems like a game that the Celtics should walk away with. The Knicks have a little bit of injuries with Trey Burke, obviously. You do have Moutier playing slightly better. Ntilikina has been more banished to the bench. You do have them letting Kevin Knox play through some youngster issues here. Beyond that, on the other side, you obviously have Kyrie Irving. He was rumored at one point to be going to the Knicks this upcoming summer, but he has reaffirmed his commitment to the Celtics, though he has not signed any sort of extension with them as of yet. You mentioned Jaylen Brown being out. There's some pieces here in the backfield that you can talk through with the Smarts and Terry Roziers of the world. And then you get into the front court pieces that may open up some value with a Hayward or some of the center pieces with a Baines in this matchup where Cantor plays 0-0 defense. What do you got as the matchup here, and where are some of the pieces you're looking for as you look at this game between the Celtics and the Knicks?
Yeah, this one's a little less than enticing. Both teams are in the bottom third, more or less, from a pace perspective for the full season. We have the Knicks checking in at 18th, Boston in there at 22nd. Boston plays some solid defense, of course, with Boston head coach
Brad Stevens.
God, I'm sitting there just going, the guy who used to coach Gordon Hayward in college, and that's where Brad Stevens has amazing defensive philosophy. He gets his people in the right position to suit their skill sets, both on offense and defense, and he is absolutely of a coach. The fact that the Knicks already have one win is just wild, but we have seen some crazy stuff happen in the NBA thus far this season, seemingly more so than we have in recent times. Now, guys that I like in this game, I am going to like a few more of the Knicks just because with having it likely being Trey Burke out, we've got Hardaway that should get all the shots that he feels like taking, which is, pretty much every time he touches the ball. Enes Kanter has a reasonably good matchup here going against Al Horford, and we know that he is a double-double threat every time he takes the court as long as he's going to get the minutes. Emmanuel Moutier's price is getting up. He's going to be one of those guys that's a little tougher to trust, and he is a direct beneficiary of Burke being out of the lineup. In the last 2 games, he has played 36 just shy of 36 minutes and just over 36 minutes, and he has scored 44 regular points. He's averaging 3 3-pointers a game, 4 rebounds a game, 5.5 assists a game, and half a block, half a steal in those 2 starts. Those are some pretty solid numbers. His usage is averaging out to about 25% in those games, so there is still a little room for upside. Of course, his usage will probably cap out around there just because Hardaway is going to be the ender on a lot of plays, or Cantor, et cetera. Noah Vonleh, I think, is intriguing at 5,100. On DraftKings, he has kind of been an up and down play. He has been listed or lauded by the coaches as one of the most complete players that they have on their team. And we didn't enjoy a 3-game stretch here when he got back into the starting lineup where he had 3 straight 40 fantasy point games at a low price. He hasn't topped 26 fantasy points since then, but this is a 3-game slate. I think he is a solid play, and he should be in the mix for a good 30 to 33 minutes. And a lot of times on these short slates, you want to buy the cheapest minutes you can get because a lot of times you're going to have to be looking for lineup construction, and unless some major injuries break one way or the other, there may not be quite the value that we're looking for. So you can oftentimes look at a more balanced lineup in situations like this. And then you're of course going to look at a Damian Dotson, Kevin Knox, Alonzo Trier, et cetera, to fill out your lineup as roster fodder, particularly if you're going to be building 150 lineups with this size of player pool. I do want to point out that while Damian Dotson has been excellent since returning to the lineup in the last 4 games, he is averaging 30 DraftKings points per game. A lot of this is coming on points, and a lot of it is coming because he is not missing. I made the joke that he is now shooting Jimmy Chitwood style, but over the last 4 games, he is shooting over 65% from the field. That's not going to continue, but on this short slate, we can still consider him in our lineups.
Short slates will make us do some funny things. So stay tuned. You're going to get projections. You're going to get grades. You're going to get ownership projections as well. So maybe a day to have some fun. If you are somebody who is trying to figure out MME, this could be a slate for you to sort of dig in and play the quarter arcade over there on DraftKings, or one of the smaller pieces over on FanDuel to start to understand how the pieces work and how you can set exposures. Reason I say this slate is because there's just far less to deal with, far less moving pieces and information you need to take into consideration here. So it might be one for you. Let's
just real quick on the Boston side, none of these guys are really standing out. If you have the cash, go for it. But remember, they're 12.5-point favorites. The starters are going to get them there, but they're back to full health, full complement of guys. It's hard to pick the person that stands out. Kyrie Irving, even at this slate, from a raw points perspective, 9K is a lot of your salary cap. I wouldn't mind considering Marcus Smart or Terry Rozier, hoping they get an extra 4 minutes in the fourth quarter than they would above their normal play. And all of a sudden that makes them a really decent value in the mid to low $4,000 if they're getting an extra 10 to 15% of run. That's where they can pick up the extra goodness against the Knicks reserves.
All right, let's keep on trucking here into our next contest. Suns and Trailblazers. Listen, this Suns team is bad. They're a bad basketball team, and then you take away TJ Warren and Devin Booker. It's an even worse one. They're minus 14 here to a Trailblazers team that's been fine on the year. Nurkic has been great at a value, especially on DraftKings for a large portion of the season. Price tag has crept up slowly. He's now at 7,300, down from 7,400 last time out. And actually has, disappointed a bit over the last 2 games when his price tag has risen. I'd love to think on a short slate that we could figure out the right pieces here, and that'll be really what we have to do. But between the likes of DeAnthony Melton, who came out of nowhere, and I'll be honest, I had 0 of him on the last short slate when Phoenix shat the bed. And looked like a high school team trying to play against an NBA team. But you had him go out and set career highs across multiple categories. I'll admit I was downloading Andrew's projections and trying to re-upload them to Fantasy Cruncher, and it kept erroring out because DeAnthony Melton didn't have the apostrophe. It was just a straight spelling. And I knew the name. I just didn't remember he was on Phoenix, so I was doing research. I was like, oh, yeah, fine. Completely disregarded. I just said, I'll fix his name so the projection is right, but whatever, 0 exposure, and let's move on. It didn't work out too well. But you have Okabo here. You have Trevor Ariza. You have Josh Jackson. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton is a talented youngster, but this is a cluster, Emac. This is bad. This is a bad basketball team. And talking about blowouts, it would seem as though this is a prime to be Portland up by 20 sometime in the second quarter. Now, obviously, top talent, when you have Damian Lillard, when you have Nurkic, they're going to be involved in the setting of that pace. But this seems like another game on a 3-game slate that you kind of shrug your shoulders and say, well, what are we going to get? So what pieces do you look at, and which are you trying to at least hone in on here as potential plays on a 3-game slate?
Yeah, this is going to be one where I'm going to be looking more to the Phoenix side, but it's going to be harder to find some things. So let's talk Portland first. That's the easier look. If McCollum is out, then I'm okay playing Lillard. I'm hoping he gets 40 fantasy points in the first half, which is completely possible for him. And from raw points, he is, a safer play. And do not think you have to play him because he's going to take up 20% of your salary cap. He's $10,000 on DraftKings. If McCollum does play, I don't really want either one of them. The only thing I think that will do is make this game get out of hand more quickly. The reason I think this game's going to get out of hand is without TJ Warren and without Booker. I just don't see a lot of points scored outside of garbage time for Phoenix. Phoenix is on a 6-game losing streak. They've lost 9 of 10 and 13 of 15. They have allowed their opponents to score at least 100 points in every game except for one. That one was last Friday when they lost to the Magic 99-85. They are not a good team. They are just not scoring enough. Where it gets interesting is who are they going to start? Now, I suspect we could see a little bit of a change with potentially Melton going into the starting lineup. I don't think he's going to. I think they're going to keep Okobo in there and just roll with it. But as you mentioned, Melton kind of came somewhat out of nowhere for a good game in the last week. So I was looking up some stuff on him as well. So he has 7 career appearances. He's a second-round draft choice out of USC. He played, it looks like about a season in a teensy bit. He got caught up in the pay for play investigation and declared for the draft last year. They had been projecting him as a mid-first rounder had he played a full second year or maybe a third year, but he came out early because his name was one of the names that came up. So he's been getting a little bit of action for the G League. I did a lot of G League looking research today because we kind of had to. Again,
short slates make you do funny things, so.
Yes, so the Northern Arizona Suns is the G League affiliate for the Phoenix Suns. So he, in 5 games there, was averaging 17 points, along with 7 rebounds and 6.5 assists. Now, those numbers actually surpassed what he put up his freshman year there in college, but we know the G League is relatively free-flowing. But it was nice to see him getting that kind of rebounds and that kind of assists. So we know the G League's a very heavy guard league. But this is something that I think we'll want to keep an eye on. Now, what's going to happen is he's the next new exciting thing. So I think a lot of people are going to look to him. I think it's a coin flip between him and Okobo. I'm okay playing both of them. If we look at who and even between the two of them, there's no real guarantee what's going to happen because you've got Mikal Bridges in the mix still. You've got Jamal Crawford there. Josh Jackson can do a little bit of ball handling. They have closed with entirely different units each of the last 3 games because it's been a variety of blowouts and it's been a mix of what is the other team putting out there for their reserves in mop-up time. So in order to match up with them, it's caused a few people to not get play in the fourth quarter, or they're just looking to lose. I mean, 3 games ago, Dragon Bender didn't play at all, and then he played the entire fourth quarter against Orlando. Sacramento. You never know what's going to happen with these guys. So I look to Josh Jackson. I think he's solid because he is good in the offense, and he's one of the remaining talents that they want to develop. I think DeAndre Ayton is also someone that I want to make. I hate to say core play. This is a small group, and as Dan mentioned, half a dozen teams in the player pool make for funny bedfellows, but these are kind of your guys that I would suspect to see on a lot of my lineups. if I was running my crunches. Again, I'm in Washington State, so I can't play in this one. But these are the types of guys that I would look for and would look to, because I do also play a lot of the late slates. So I do like some of these shorter slates here. So I would look to, again, Jackson and Ayton. I think it's a coin flip between Okobo and Melton. I would not overlook Bridges as an option here, because I think he could get lost in the shuffle. And then I think Rashawn Holmes is also interesting. Now, he was a little bit of a darling on Monday night for the DFS world and got there with a double-double before he fouled out, but he paid off his number. He is someone that even coming off the bench is fine, and he has been scoring more than what I thought and still getting some rebounds and blocks. So those are the guys. I would suspect most of my builds would have at least 3 Suns on them, just because of the value and opportunity with their 2 best players not even going to be taking the court on Thursday night.
Yeah, you just have you're looking for volume here with Phoenix. You're hoping that the starters get run, even if they're getting blown out. The likes of Josh Jackson. Surprising to see he only took 11 shots against Sacramento. Did not expect that to be the stat line. Expected him to be honestly up 15 plus, and maybe we get that performance here against Portland. But a price tag of 5,400. I haven't built anything as of yet, but it does feel as though you're going to be able to fit a large majority of what you want. Yeah, obviously, you're not going to necessarily get Harden, Lillard, and Irving in a lineup. I get it. But you're not really forced to pay up at multiple positions. Power forward is pretty cheap. Small forward's pretty cheap. Shooting guard has Harden at the top. But you could make some cases for Lillard, Harden lineup. Or looking at center, it's Nurkic, it's Cantor. You're going to be able to do some things here. So the likes of Josh Jackson with some upside, if he goes to sort of chucking and some of those hit, will have some definite upside. Let's close it out with the final game, and it's one that Vegas.
Sorry, Dan.
Sure.
I wanted to say Nurkic, I think, would also be on my short list as a core play, and I think Al-Farouq Aminu would be the other guy. The Phoenix has enough size that even once Nurkic is done, and we know he can get it done in 20 minutes against these guys and just put up some monster stats, and he's fairly priced at 7,300. So he's someone I would give strong consideration to. At 5,200, I think Al-Farouq Aminu is a fantastic option. I would be shocked if he doesn't get at least 25 fantasy points, both on DraftKings or FanDuel, and I think that's completely reasonable. There's definitely some upside there. I am not interested. I think it's getting too cute looking to Zach Collins or Miles Leonard. Mo Harkness still kind of on a minutes limit as he's been dealing with a bunch of injuries. But Evan Turner, who recently missed a game but came back strong with 30 minutes, he's also a guy that should see a fair amount of mop-up duty, particularly if CJ McCollum is not going to play. He may even get some starting action. He's at the rare situation where I'm like, I'm okay with him starting because I know, well, I don't know for sure, but we can suspect that the Trailblazers should be heavily in charge of this game, and he should get the second half to run the offense.
Let's close it out with the final game of the night, Rockets and Jazz, the one that Vegas believes could be close, -2 in favor of Utah here in Utah, 217 over under. You get obviously lots of potential pieces here when you talk about Harden and Chris Paul. You throw Donovan Mitchell and Joe Ingles on the other side in the backcourt, and then you obviously have Clint Capella, Rudy Gobert, and then you get to the cheaper likes of Derrick Favors and Jay Crowder. And pieces like Eric Gordon and other, Kyle Korver here now for Utah as well. Did see some minutes in Tuesday's win over the Spurs. So should be an intriguing game. This is a Utah team that has gotten by largely, at least from a DFS perspective, on the merits of the past. They are not a great defensive team this year. Rudy Gobert has had one of his least effective defensive seasons to date. And the backcourt's pretty bad when it comes to defensive rating and individual matchups. Harden, Paul, even Gordon all make tons of sense here for the Rockets. 3-game slate, of course they do, but this game on an island in and of itself, I don't fear this Jazz defense in any way, shape, or form. What do you got? Who are the names? And then we'll close out the podcast.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. No, you should not fear the Utah Jazz defense. They're in the bottom third of the league this year. Of all teams, Houston is actually in the top third of the league from overall defensive efficiency perspective. If we want to look at pace, it's Utah at a 20, the 20th highest pace. They're going to be dragging Houston along. Houston has the 28th slowest pace this year. So what's up is down. What's down is up. It's a bit of a mess. Now, that said, James Harden, phenomenal. He's the guy I want in a ton of my lineups. Yes, Chris Paul's going to be around there, but I still think James Harden may end up being a guy that has to play all 4 quarters. And I think could be very, very important when we're looking to pay for our studs, because in the other games, they're sort of lopsided affairs. This one is set with double-digit home favorites. Our money may not be well spent there, but our salary cap could be well spent in the game that's got these two teams separated by a bucket. Clint Capella, Rudy Gobert, not the best matchup for either one of them. Your mileage may vary. I would be curious to see what the ownership and popularity percentages are going to be on Osmo.com before I would really go to those guys. That's why I, as I'm playing around, I can't enter the contest, but I've been running a couple crunches here tonight. And I think Nurkic is making for a better build for what I'm trying to do for this type of a slate. I'm perfectly fine going to Donovan Mitchell or Ricky Rubio from Utah. Outside of those two, the only other guy I would be even intrigued by a little bit would be Jay Crowder. I think this style of game tends to suit him a little bit better than it would for Derrick Favors. The one thing to remember, these guys only played once so far this season. It was back on October 24th. So there's not a lot to be inferred from that one. So I would look to the quote unquote stars here, and I would probably focus mostly on the backcourts for both teams.
Yeah, quickly making a lineup here. You're not going to get everyone you want, but you can make a case for, let's see, if I go Gordon there, it's not pretty, but you can get Harden and Nurkic as sort of your two building blocks. And there's plenty of value because of Phoenix and because of the Knicks. Now, again, the Knicks backcourt is a mess. The Phoenix backcourt is a mess. Like you're throwing darts even on a 3-game slate, right? Like you're trying to make what's up is down and what's down is up. You're trying to make those sensible decisions, but there are ways to do it.
Damian Dotson, DeAnthony Melton, come on down.
Exactly, it's a party, man. But it's going to be that sort of slate. It's going to be the Ron Baker slate. I don't even know if he's actually on the active Knicks roster as of right now, but have fun. Remember that it's a small slate. Maybe try out some MME, try out some different lineup constructions, try out new stat lines or new process if you've been struggling a little bit. And enjoy it. Have fun. I really mean that on these shorter slates, and you should be having fun on the big slates too. But I think this is some times to do a little bit different when it comes to lineup construction and maybe the way you attack or what games you're playing. Start seeking out different payout structures and different games at large. I know over on FanDuel they have the quintuple ups, which some in Slack chat for Osmo have really enjoyed. Don't forget also, leave us a comment over there on iTunes with your favorite moment from the podcast to date, as well as your favorite dad joke. Do the same over on YouTube. Slam that like button and subscribe at will. So make sure you're alerted of all the awesome content that's coming out pretty much every hour throughout the day. So you'll want to be apprised of that. Emac, any final thoughts before we go?
No, that's going to do it. It's a 3-gamer. Have fun, bankroll management. And a reminder for those of you that are feeling a little thrifty, I will have the single game Thursday night action-packed contest analysis up. That'll be free on the Osmo homepage. It's free because I would never, in my heart of hearts, even want somebody to pay for analysis between the Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans under any circumstances.
It's Cody Kessler season. With that said, we wish you the best of luck. You always find Emac at Emac DFS over on Twitter. Find him in Slack chat. For Osmo.com, find me at Dan Strapper. It's at Osmo_com on Twitter. And as I said, over on iTunes and YouTube, like button, 5-star rating, and of course, answer the house phone whenever it rings. With that said, best of luck on Thursday night. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning, me and Dave, right here on your DFS Early Bird.